Over the past few years, everything has changed. Where and how we work and live, the way we collaborate and measure success, and the emerging technologies we use to get it all done. Welcome to The Bridge. Join our host, Scott Kinka, in a series of discussions with top leaders in technology and learn about how they bridge their lives and their businesses into our new hybrid work and AI-driven reality. Our hope is that the insights and experiences will help you on your journey in business and in life from who we were to who we are today. And maybe it'll help you get better prepared for whatever comes next. The Bridge is a service of Bridgepoint Technologies, the nation's leading IT advisory firm. Bridgepoint helps business leaders evaluate, procure, implement, and manage technology and customer experience solutions with a focus on realizing sustainable results for your business growth. And now, here's your host, Scott Kinka.
Okay, technologists, just because you can do something, should you? You wouldn't be in this business if you weren't a tinkerer by heart. We solve business needs, don't we? I love turning wrenches and seeing what happens. I've done that my entire career. And over 25 plus years, I've also made the mistake of overcommitment just because I can do something. So here we are, IT leaders, service providers, VARs, professional services firms. Let's be honest with ourselves, intellectually honest with ourselves. Just because you can, should you? Just because your customer or your organization wants it, do they actually need it? With great power comes great responsibility, right? My guest on The Bridge this week is Avi Lonstein. He's the CEO of Airespring. Airespring is a 21-year-old MSP with a legacy in connectivity and communications, an emerging stack in managed security and SD-WAN, and a commitment to covering international requirements. And it's the latter conversation, supporting international requirements, that really got the juices flowing around this can-should quandary. It's particularly interesting here because Avi and I first met years ago when I was acquiring a business from Airespring, one that happened to be in Israel. Sure, we can make the phone ring anywhere. We're in the cloud, right? We can deliver the software anywhere. We're in the cloud. But what about on-site support, shipping, equipment, replacement, privacy, regulatory, taxation, import-export control, local law? We hit this and a bunch of other topics on this episode. But I really found our chat about productivity to be particularly interesting as well, especially in light of some of the recent episodes we've had on the podcast where productivity became a hot topic. Avi believes that their users have been more productive since work from home and ultimately hybrid work. He's got some super interesting insights on that and some thinking you'll want to hear more about. But getting back to the earlier topic, just because you can do it, should you? Words to think about. Stay with us for my conversation with Avi Lonstein, CEO of Airespring. Hi, and welcome to the Bridge Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Kinka, and joining me today, as we're kicking off our season 2 here, is a longtime friend, actually. We've done some business together, Avi Lonstein from Airespring. He's the CEO. How are you?
Doing well. It's great to see you, Scott. We haven't chatted for a while. It's fun to catch up. And we're talking now reminds me of all those cool, fun things we were working on a few years ago. But very excited to be here on your podcast and looking forward to having a fun conversation.
Absolutely. Avi, you are the CEO at Airespring. How long have you been at Airespring?
Well, now you're throwing real numbers out there. So
let's get right at it, man.
Exactly. You want to expose my age right out the gate. Okay. Airespring is a family-owned and operated managed services provider. We founded the company just over 21 years ago, so time has flown. I was a much younger man when we started, had more hair, and the company has grown over those years. This is actually our second family-owned and operated industry or business in the industry. So I've now been in the telecom and managed services space for, I was just looking at about 35 years. Time has flown, but Airespring for 21 years now. And what I'm really proud of is we have the the essentially the same senior management team, family owned and operated over that full 21-year period, shows the stability and reliability of that team.
That's amazing. What's the secret to 21 years with the same leadership team, Avi?
Well, it helps to have them be family members for a few of them, but beyond that, the thing is, I think it's all about culture. So you want to take your time. You want to find the right people who have long-term values, who are focused on really customer, delight and exceeding customer expectations. And so I've always looked to find, a senior leadership team, individuals who are really in it, not, just for advancement. Of course, that's always part of the game, but for what can they do to provide a better customer experience, a better partner experience. And so a lot of communication, really, making sure I'm extremely transparent as a leader, and also keeping really good, good stability. In our 21 years, I'm proud to say that we've never had a layoff at the company, not once. And that's because we built the company thoughtfully, conservatively, with this idea that we build it for the long term, not just for the next quarter.
Which is crazy if you think about that. I mean, there were multiple periods of tech contraction over the last 21 years. I mean, you caught the end of .bomb, you had the '08 recession, the kind of 17 slowdown, the early 23 bloodletting, right? Through all that, you've maintained no layoffs and the same senior leadership team. That's pretty amazing. You guys are headquartered in Los Angeles, correct?
We are, well, actually things have changed. So
okay, tell me more.
Yeah, when you and I last talked, our HQ was in Los Angeles. We had team members across the country, but most of our senior leadership and management team were based in Los Angeles. Things have changed over the course of the pandemic, and it's been very interesting for Airespring. So obviously we had to adjust very rapidly to the changing environment. Our office shut down pretty much entirely, and we all pivoted very rapidly over to work from home on an immediate basis. Luckily, we utilize the same cloud communications and unified communications technology that we sell, and it really worked. I can tell you that, Scott. We were able to pivot in literally 24 hours and move hundreds of people into a home environment. So that worked out really well. As we all know, it certainly did not take 1 week to flatten the curve. And so we thought we'd be back in a few weeks. We thought we'd be back in a few months, but that is stretched out. And we noticed something very interesting, which is that our productivity did not drop. In fact, we had a very committed and motivated team. Quite frankly, for many of our team members, the flexibility of not having to make a lengthy commute to the office every day was a benefit to them. In some cases, buying them anywhere from 1 to 3 hours of lessened time on the road. And so as time went on, we started recognizing that a more virtualized and hybrid environment is working for Airespring. And so we have never really fully returned to a single corporate location. We do have offices in Los Angeles and in Florida. We have offices also in the Philippines and El Salvador. But at this point, I would say that in the U.S., most of our team is spread out across the country.
Fantastic. We've heard similar stories particularly, as you're aware, the guests on this podcast are all technology leaders like yourself. And we hear a similar story. Hey, we ate our own dog food, right? Using the colloquialism. But, you deal with customers every day. And certainly you did through the pandemic. Not focusing so much on day after because we've talked that to death. Let's talk about now. Have IT leaders and business executives determined what their return to work or hybrid work strategy is? Are we still in this mode of, as you're talking to customers, wait it out and see, how the employees react?
I think we're past the wait it out and see period for most. So I think we're seeing, sort of companies taking different approaches to how they are, implementing a return to work policy. I can tell you that we are seeing very little of what I call a 100% return to work sort of environment. It does exist, but it's more rare. In most cases, it's a hybrid model, anywhere from 3 days a week, 2 days a week. Look, every company recognizes that getting your people together, getting them in person, that helps to create collaboration. There are many benefits from having the team together, but I think the days of a strictly in the office environment 5 days a week is probably something of the past for most of the what I call the tech workers and the technological positions. With that said, we are seeing more of a return to the office than we have in the past. And I think if you follow some of the statistics out there, they mention something as much as 70% of the workforce is now spending some portion of their time at least in the office.
Well, they're the same people, right? It's less. This is a question. It's less, 30% of people are at home and 70% are in the office, and more 70% of people are in the office 70% of the time or 30% of the time, right? So basically everybody's virtual and or in office, largely speaking.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's the same. I mean, the people didn't change. It's just, the mix of how much time is spent
They're
where.
spending.
And then don't forget, like even at our company now, for a long time, we had no one on the road. And now, all of our sales team are, nonstop out and about and traveling. So it depends what team is doing what as to how much time they're in an office.
Sure.
It also depends on how much. So there are some teams that really, it works better to have them together as much as possible, and we focus on that. Other teams are, doing different things where it will work out well for them to be on the road. So I think what's most amazing about this is we've proven across the, really across the entire economy that a hybrid environment can and does work, but it has to be dealt with in, there is some balance to it. It doesn't work entirely one way or the other.
Yeah. How has that changed, business, really technology conversations?
Scott, I can't hear you
with
at the moment.
Airespring. How has that changed the conversations you're having with clients? It used to be, we built WANs and we sort of protected our offices around the walled garden, and, we could not be so great at managing endpoints provided they were in the office most of the time. And then everybody went home and we took a 2-year pass, and now we're in hybrid. I mean, how's that changing the business conversations that you're having with customers now that we've started to settle in on the way we think we're going to work?
I mean, it's just a different environment, right? So it was simpler in the past, and now it's become infinitely more complex. IT managers have to consider, the fact that the edge of their network is expanded out far greater than just the walls of their office space, right? So they got to take into account all of their, hybrid workers, remote, people coming in and out. So security plays a bigger and bigger role. There's no doubt that security is key to it. Connectivity and having multiple forms of connectivity is key. SD-WAN and networking plays a key role. I would say that what's happened now is, things are getting more complex. It does definitely help to start driving this concept of SASE, even though I think it's still in the, let's call it the hype part of that cycle. But the concepts behind SASE, which is, the idea to essentially, move all of the various cloud architecture, infrastructure, security architecture and infrastructure into the cloud. That really makes sense, especially as you move to this more hybrid environment. So I think that SASE is going to be, and we are offering SASE is going to be a key driver for this more flexible environment as we go forward. yeah, I mean, you've got to have the flexibility and you've got to have the interconnection to the cloud. And so a lot of the old type, infrastructure setting where you'd have, a bunch of boxes sitting in an office, that's probably bit by bit going away.
It's interesting. I mean, for a business like yours, 21-year legacy, right? Um, where the unit of measure in client conversations, being in the connectivity business at the start was always how many locations did you have? Are you now at a point where the unit of measure in a conversation that you have with IT is how many people, not how many locations? Are we over big shiny buildings, at least as the basis of the conversation?
I would say it's becoming less of the conversation, right? So to
Okay.
say it doesn't exist, I mean, let's face it. One thing I do want to point out here is that, we keep focusing on office workers, but there is a whole economy out there that goes well beyond that. Let's think about healthcare, manufacturing, distribution. There are so many segments that have to, retail. All of those segments are not going to be virtual just by the very nature of what they do, right? I mean, those are business segments that still operate in very much the same way where, the team members have to be in that location to make it work. And so what we saw actually happen is a significant increase in growth of connectivity demand, especially, for instance, during the pandemic years, distribution and healthcare. I mean, those went through the roof, just skyrocketed, and kind of replaced sort of the lag on sort of traditional office space,
Yeah.
manufacturing, all of those things. So what I would say, first of all, is, it doesn't apply to everyone. And when we take the entire marketplace, or, there are many segments where it's a different conversation. For those segments where, sort of this hybrid environment is available, yes, we are no longer just talking about, well, what is the size of your pipe to your headquarters, because that's not the conversation. How do we connect all of your team members? What is the security stance? Whether we're going to be offering it or whether it's going to be offered by, a different partner, and we work together with them in conjunction. So more complex from that perspective.
Got it. You mentioned SASE as a focus for you. So let me just hold that for a moment. Let's take it back. I mean, give us the pitch. Tell us about Airespring in general, your strengths. But as you're doing that, certainly particular focus in sort of what's been an adjustment, since we've changed the way we've worked. Like, what are you today? But also kind of how has that changed over the course of the past couple of years to reflect this new reality?
Got it. Well, let's start with the pitch. It's always good to have the high level of what we do. So, essentially, we are a managed services provider, and our sweet spot, or our strength, is providing a really wide set of managed solutions, and we cover varying areas. We have a full suite of connectivity products. We offer security. We have SD-WAN, and all of these are primarily from best of breed vendors. So, for instance, in the SD-WAN space, we partner with VMware and Fortinet and Cisco. We have a whole cloud communications and UCaaS suite, and we've recently rolled out a full set of mobility and wireless services. The other thing that's happened over the last 3-4 years is we've expanded outside of the United States, and we now offer a set of services in terms of logistics, global, and connectivity on a global basis, pretty much around the globe. And we have started focusing on customers who really need to pull together a complete global solution rather than just a solution, let's say, in the US or in the Americas. And so that's what we do, but our sweet spot and the value proposition is really that we provide a higher level of service and support. We like to call this the Airespring Advantage, and essentially it's we believe that we can provide our customers with a better overall experience, than they would receive from one of the major telcos, and that's simply just because of size. At those bigger companies, you really need to be a Fortune 100, maybe Fortune 500 customer to receive what I call white glove service and support. At Airespring, we're able to focus on the mid-sized sector of the economy, and we are able to deliver that level of service and support. And so that is really where we differentiate. We're small enough to be, nimble, but yet we're large enough. We now have about 325 team members. So we're large enough to take on really any complexity. We have highly skilled and tenured engineers who can architect any sort of networking, security, cloud communication solution. So that is really the very high level view. At the end of the day, it's been 21 years and nothing has changed for us, Scott. It's always been about service, support, reliability, delivering on the promises that we make, making sure that we have rapid response when things are not working out as well as they should be. We have an escalation list that goes all the way up to me, and we are highly responsive to our customers. We really do believe in delivering a true white glove experience.
Fantastic. And you hit on a couple things there. Let's unpack international a little bit. So truth be told, just for fun, Avi and I have a history. He actually sold me a business of his that was in Israel. So we had some fun that way. Great business, great people, still operating, frankly, under the company that I was working for at the time at a while. But we knew each other from international. That's certainly a specialty. Is that a pandemic era specialty, or has that really always been in DNA for Airespring?
It's been driven primarily by customer demand, right? So what would be happening is we have customers who have locations across the US, 200, 300, 400 locations. And then they would say to us, oh, by the way, we've got a bunch of locations in, whatever country around the world. Can you service them? And in the past, we'd have to say, well, we don't really have the, capabilities to do that. And we recognize that this is a need and a requirement for many customers. They really would like to have a single source provider for, their SD-WAN, their connectivity, their security, both within the US and outside. And so it really started from that front where we had customers who, really asked us, can we do this? And we looked into it and we figured we could put the team together. So we've built a nice team around that. I have a general manager of that team who has deep experience in that space. And we now have relationships with hundreds of international carriers around the world. We also have a global logistics capability together with VMware and Fortinet, so that we can actually, deliver service support, both VMware and Fortinet SD-WAN, SASE, and security.
Certainly. I think customers have a tendency. You mentioned UCaaS as an example. Historically, it's always been difficult to build a single solution internationally for a whole host of reasons. So it was always, hey, our domestic locations get this set of services, and then, the international locations are the redheaded stepchildren, right? They get something else because that's, explain for our listeners, for somebody who's been in this for a long time. And, and as I mentioned, we met each other selling an international business to each other. So we certainly have some legacy there together. Talk to our listeners about why that's so hard, regulatorily, logistically, you think it would be easy, right? Okay, it's London, right? That's might as well be New York, but speak to why that's so hard, first of all, and obviously that'll inure to your story of why that's a specialty for you.
Yeah. Look, putting aside the international piece just for a second, I mean, the reality is if you have a complex set of managed or services that need to be managed, any company is struggling, with budget and resources these days. The workload to take on managing 2, 3, 4, 8 whatever number of vendors, and then having the potential for the blame game, finger pointing, managing, all of those things make it really difficult. So take that just in, let's say, the US market, and now multiply the complexity as you go globally. You've got everything from local regulations and laws, exchange rates, import-export controls. How do you handle if something goes wrong? What do you do? I mean, it becomes sort of a geometric equation as to how complicated it can be. So, the whole premise of Airespring is about offloading this management capability either fully or on a co-managed basis. So we do have some customers who really want to co-manage with us. They would like to, let's say, manage their SD-WAN, and we'll give them access to our orchestrator and they can co-manage it. But anytime something goes wrong, they know that they can turn this all over to us. And so that's a really powerful, a powerful value proposition, for customers who are trying to deal with this stuff. Otherwise, you got to go and find the vendor. You got to go sign a contract in a foreign country, deal with the, currency controls. It's complicated. I mean, we ourselves work really hard to put the resources in place to deal with this. It's not an easy business.
Yeah. Not to mention privacy and regulatory, which is, wow.
And that's all.
Right.
And, every country has different rules, and you don't want to misstep or make an error that's going to get you into the wrong, situation.
Yeah. I mean, those are costly mistakes that are shared by the customer too, right? Which I think is really important for customers to consider when they're looking for an MSP or a service provider who can bridge the gaps of international. How much do you trust the yes is something they need to think about, right? Because it does go down, they will bear the penalty on the service provider's missteps because they're the one operating in country. So just one of the things to consider. Avi, I'm going to shift gears on you, if you don't mind, with the few minutes we have left, and just get to know you a little bit better and ask a couple of fun questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, let's go for it. Absolutely.
All right. So here's the first one I'm going to hit you with. We're probably moderately prepared for this one.
I'm ready for these.
All right. Well, here we go. The first one is a shameless prediction I'm looking for. Call it 18 to 24 months. It doesn't need to be in tech. I try and stay away from it being about Airespring. Obviously, you've already given us some conjecture about your own company. But, macroeconomic, political, sports and entertainment doesn't matter to me. Put your Nostradamus hat on and tell us something that's going to happen in the next 18 to 24 months.
Well, I wish I could tell you, whether Bitcoin is going to be worth nothing in 24 months or worth, $1 million.
If you had the answer, please share.
I've heard both arguments and they both sound compelling. So I'll stay out of a discussion like that. I got to focus on the things that I understand and know. And I would tell you that, to me, the most compelling sort of trend that's going on right now, and I know it sounds like a broken record because you've probably heard it 50 times in the last few months, and that is AI. And just what's going on. So obviously, yes, we all know about ChatGPT, and that's kind of exciting. But the repercussions going through all of technology with regard to what can be done with AI and what will be done, it's going to roll through everything. I mean, essentially, I don't think there'll be any B2B SaaS software or any software of any sort that will not have to have a fairly integrated AI component to it. And I believe even in the let's call it the the security and telecom industry, I believe we're going to see AI take a big play and a big part in this over the next few years. I mean, for security, it's a no-brainer, right? Think about it. I mean, you're dealing with tens of thousands of data points flowing into your SOC or your NOC or any system. Can you imagine if all of that data can be analyzed at real time and true artificial intelligence applied against it? That's one example. I mean, I'm sure there are many others in SD-WAN. Sure. So I'm really excited about that. And I think that 24 months from now, while we might not have full-blown products out the door, you're going to see a lot more, you're going to see this much more, positioned out in the marketplace as to what it means. So there's one, I would say.
Avi, feelings on governments trying to jump in now and curtail while they can get their heads around this, or is the genie out of the bottle?
When any government or tries to curtail or try and essentially bottle down technology. I mean, we've seen it all over the place. I mean, funny enough, I mentioned Bitcoin. I mean, that's a technology that really, government is trying to do some things about, but honestly, it's not that easy, right? So, I think there needs to be some regulation for, some smart thought around, safety and making sure that, this technology is not used in an irresponsible way. And so, there probably will be some of that, but the technology itself is, I mean, what it can do, and the promise in terms of speeding up every single interaction from a consumer or business perspective. There's no way that anyone's going to be able to, sort of lock that down completely.
It's going to be an interesting time frame of life imitating art, or art imitating life. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I feel like we're in an Isaac Asimov novel right now in terms of, negotiating the 5 laws of, sentient computer-based life. And I mean, it's going to be really, really interesting. So we'll see. But I agree. I mean, I think the genie's out of the bottle. People are seeing the applications. They're too valuable. I think the challenge, and everybody getting back to the life imitating art thing, is, we've got a lot of sci-fi that tells us this could go bad. And the question is when is the singularity? I'm not exactly sure. I think it's probably not in the next 18 to 24 months. So in the meantime, let's see what happens.
We can ask Elon Musk about this. He has a lot of opinions, probably far smarter than mine. So, all I know is obviously there's always a potential for any technology to, have a negative effect. And who knows? Maybe we better start learning machine language, because that's the language we'll have to be talking in 50 years from now if we want to stay.
Potentially. All right, 2 more fun questions and we'll let you get out of here. This has been very entertaining. All right, so maybe eventually it is the robot apocalypse, but whatever the next great human stumbling block is, right? Whatever that happens to be. This occurs and there's only one application that continues to operate on Avi's phone. What is your have to have remaining functional app on your mobile device?
It's really sad, and my kids make fun of me about this, and you probably know what I'm going to say already, but honestly, sadly enough, for someone who works with so much technology, I still use a lot of email, way too much email than I need to. So, probably, look, at this point, my kids don't want to talk to me on the phone anyway, right? They want a message. So I don't really need, I don't really need a phone anymore, because no one wants to talk to me on the phone. I guess I am a little beyond that. I probably keep on going and doing a lot of things that I do with email. So, we're talking about technology. I don't know, how old is email right now? Is it 50 years old, 40? I don't know. We'd have to go back and figure out that. So I don't know. What would yours be? I'm sure you've asked this question a few times. I'm interested to know.
It's so funny. I've heard everybody else's answers, so I get the luxury of having considered all the implications of the fact that, if this next event happens, I guess that's how broad that event is, right? Like, people have said, oh, I need my ESPN app. I'm like, well, they're not playing games, so that's not very valuable. I think for me, it's something to keep me busy. It's probably Apple Music at the end of the day, because I'm not sure who else is around to get my text messages, but we'll see. I guess that'll depend on the extent of whatever that next event is, right?
Yeah, I wasn't quite clear that your singularity was quite there to that extent. But now that I'm saying, maybe the most useful thing would be the flashlight on the back of your iPhone. I don't know.
You know what? That's the best answer I've heard yet. I love it. All right. Well, last question for you, then we'll let you get out of here. What's on your end table right now? What are you reading? Is there something that you want to share with everybody? And if you don't have something that's current, maybe you can just share with us your sort of Avi's essential reading for business executives. What does everybody need to get their face in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always so scared to throw this out, because the truth of the matter is, every book that I've come up with is not a book that was an idea of my own. It's something that someone else has thrown at me. So I'm trying to think here, what is on my shelf right now. It's funny. my wife tells me I need to get away from reading, business books and try and just read some fiction. And so, I don't know. So I go back to things I've read before, like, whether you like it or not, I like Ayn Rand. So get back to reading, some of
Atlas
that.
Shrugged.
Yeah, as an example, So,
Yeah.
we get hit so much these days with so much business. I'm in business all the time. I think it's a good idea for us to all take a break and just try and focus on a few other things, a few other areas of interest in life, even though I do love to, read up a lot about the business environment. So right now I'm kind of touring back through some books that I've read in the past and just enjoying.
Getting back to your classics. Well, words of wisdom, and I appreciate that. We spend so much time listening to fantastic podcasts like The Bridge and reading, business books. We can take a break now and then, and I certainly agree and appreciate that. Avi, tell us a little bit before we go, for people who are a bit more interested in Airespring, maybe thinking about how it could help their business, how best to find out more?
Well, look, obviously you can learn a lot by just going to our website, www.airespring.com. But we have a long and very strong relationship with the folks at Bridgepoint. We work with a lot of very experienced partners there, and honestly, I believe that any of these processes, it's a consultative discussion. Anyone who's going to walk in the door and try and sell you something right off the shelf without having a true detailed discussion as to what it is that are your the customer requirements are, how they're evolving, what's important to them. That's what's key. So that is why we believe that the best way to do this is to work with a true technology professional, an advisor who can help you out. And then, Airespring might not be the entirety of the solution. We understand that. We're only one part of a full, stack of technology. We fit certain pieces, but, I think the best thing is to have an advisor who can assist you, like an advisor from Bridgepoint who can assist you on the entire, technology stack.
I appreciate that, Avi. Thanks very much. And I appreciate all of you hanging in with us for what's been a really informative session here. My guest today on The Bridge has been Avi Lonstein. He's the CEO of Airespring. As he said, check them out at airespring.com. And obviously, if you're interested in learning a little bit more, your friendly neighborhood Bridgepoint strategist is also available to help. So thanks for your time, everyone. And thanks for your attention and listening to this episode of The Bridge.
Thank you so much. It was great. A lot of fun.
Listen, if you made it this far, there must have been some good content, or you're just a fan or a relative of mine. In either case, we appreciate you spending your most valuable asset with us, your time. We don't take that lightly. We'd also like to say one more time that we are appreciative of Bridgepoint Technologies and their belief and sponsorship of this show. We hope that if you or someone you know is thinking about your company's digital transformation or simply the next IT project that you may not have the resources, budget, or time to get to, I'm sure that Bridgepoint, one of the country's fastest growing technology advisory and procurement firms, can help. Check out Bridgepoint at bridgepointtechnologies.com. Don't forget the E on Bridgepoint, or simply reach out to me at Skinka, SKINKA, at bpt3.net. Also, take a minute, please, if you would, to give us a 5-star review on your favorite platform. It gives us the visibility to reach other people like you. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Bridge. I am Scott Kinka, and until next time, there's a lot of noise out there. In business and in life, do what you can to be the signal. Thanks.